with respect to Trump's claim that he is immune for the things that he does while he's president, when it's allegedly within the realm of the president's duties, that's bullshit. That's what I think of that argument. Nobody is above the law, not the president, no member of Congress, not even a member of the Supreme Court. Nobody is above the law. The laws still govern the president. Now, we can argue about whether something broke the law or not, but I do not accept and will never accept an argument that the president is above the law and immune from those kinds of charges. And I'll tell you why. I would never want to support that argument because I would never want to see a Democrat president flipping that coin on its head and saying the same thing. It's common sense, and it's just right to hold people accountable for their actions under the law. There is no immunity for the president. Donald Trump, because he is temperamentally unfit for office and has demonstrated a disregard and lack of respect for the laws of this country, and has shown that he will abuse them further if he gets a chance to. He is not putting America first. He's putting Donald Trump first, and to hell with democracy.
If Trump were to get in, I mean, what's going to happen? His lawyer at some point in his trial claimed that Trump could just kill somebody and it would be legal because he was president. He had presidential immunity. And using that theory, if Congress decided to impeach him, he could just kill enough congressmen to stop it. In his legal theory, that would just all be justified. He has presidential immunity.
I'm very worried about a second Trump term. I think he would totally upend our departments, for example, the Department of Justice. I think he would manipulate everything so it works for him and only him and not the people of the United States. And that scares me. Donald Trump expressing his wish to terminate the Constitution is one of the most egregious things I think you could even do. This is our democracy. This is our country. And for better, for worse, we follow the rules. And they are for all of us. I don't believe the president needs total immunity. We've been going for 200 years and we haven't had any problems. Again, we follow the law, and that's what the Constitution is, basically, an outline, a guide for our laws and the things that we're supposed to do in this democracy.
As to Donald Trump's immunity claim, no one's above the law. It's un-American. The Supreme Court, I think they should quickly reject that case. I think they should go with what the lower appeals court wrote. This idea, his lawyers even admitted he should be able to use a SEAL team to kill his political opponent. It's absurd.
The Supreme Court right now, I question its even legitimacy. I can't even believe the things that they're ruling on. This whole thing with the immunity, they're even listening to this. It's beyond me. And I don't know. Hopefully they're doing it so they can set the record straight and then it will never be brought up again. I would say that it's very worrisome, but it's also on a certain level, it's good because people can really see who he is. He's not trying to hide it. It's not flirting with authoritarianism. He's an authoritarian. He believes that he should be immune from any criminal prosecution of anything that he does as president of the United States. It's despicable. He takes no responsibility for anything. It's always someone else's fault. Oh, this is all authoritarian playbook. He supports dictators around the world. He makes no bones about it.
Throughout all of his court cases, pushing the idea that he's totally immune to the law just because he had sat in the Oval Office. I consider myself a conservative. I love the principles and the values of the Constitution and of our republic and our democracy. And I am not at the point where I could support Donald Trump because I see that his goals and his values are not in line with the principles of the Constitution. They're just in line with himself and helping himself move forward. I do not believe that Donald Trump is in line with the Constitution. I would only vote somebody who I feel would represent me and would uphold and defend the Constitution as they swear to in their inaugural oath. I would not believe Donald Trump saying that he would support and defend the Constitution as his main priority.
As I've gotten older, I have a great appreciation for the rule of law, and I feel like it is an indescribably important foundation of our country. And I feel like it's under direct assault now from Donald Trump, namely, and not just Donald Trump, a lot of enablers with him. I thought the Republicans were always the party that represented the rule of law and respect for law I do not believe that Donald Trump's Republican Party, which is the only Republican Party existing now, is anywhere near that whatsoever. The rule of law is not anything that they're close to at all.
I'm very concerned with his push towards the Supreme Court to try to get full immunity as a president. That basically means he cannot be charged for any crimes he commits, and that if he was reelected president, that if he was charged with crimes, he could pardon himself. That's what dictators do. They make it so they can not get punished for anything that defies the Constitution or breaks a law, and they ensure they stay in power, and they punish anyone that opposes them. Just underscores his character, that he's not trustworthy. He doesn't take responsibility. He won't admit wrong. He will lie, steal, cheat, and say whatever he wants to have power over other people, which is what narcissists do. And so I'm just not comfortable with him in a leadership position.
Not particularly happy with the overall status of the candidates, and I do believe that Joe Biden is too old to continue as president. But frankly, I am more scared of Donald Trump as a president than I am of Joe Biden's age. He certainly has taken action to almost try and become a dictator in this country. That really worries me. Trying to get presidential immunity on all actions, I find astonishing that the only other person that I know that tried to do that was Dick Nixon, and he wasn't a really good guy.
Nobody is above the law in this country. If he murdered somebody, does that mean that he's okay because he's president? I don't think so. So no, I don't agree with that, and I think it's wrong.
So actually, my wife is concerned about me talking out against Trump online. I don't want to get, a drone strike in the middle of the night in my house, Trump gets elected. But, it's a serious concern. You look at what his lawyer said recently about immunity, and they were trying to make the case for immunity for political assassinations. And so you look at that, and that's just not somebody you want to have in office.
Trump's complete contempt for the Constitution and for respecting the rule of law and the humiliation for our country and the damage it did to our democracy it's just difficult to get your head around that. They all just demonstrate a man who is out of control, has complete contempt for the rule of law. Donald Trump is just corrupt to the core. Donald Trump is the antithesis of every value Republicans have stood for. The Constitution, the rule of law, accountability for your actions, ethical behavior, moral compass, none of which applies to Donald Trump.
I am particularly concerned with the fact that the Supreme Court is trying to figure out if it's a-okay for him to have absolute immunity. And Judge Aileen Cannon, with the classified documents case, is dragging her heels. Quite clearly, that case, which is extremely disturbing and dangerous to our country, that's being put on the back burner and may never be solved. So yeah, the legal issues that Trump is dealing with are very much his own making.
He is a dangerous individual, I feel, because he does not believe in the rule of law. If you commit criminal acts and you've served your time, you should be given a second break. But I don't see that in Donald Trump's future. He has been a suspect actor from day one. He has looked out for himself and his circle all the way along. And I'm concerned that he will suspend the rule of law. He will do things by executive order that are not necessarily legal, but allowed because he will have the authority of the president.
I think he wants to go to the Supreme. Actually, that's what I think it might have been, is the immunity case, the Supreme Court. I think he's really hoping the Supreme Court is going to say, I don't think no matter what, they're going to come back and give him full immunity on everything, but I think he's looking for the escape clause from the Supreme Court. And then, of course, then give him the checkered flag or the green flag, let him go do anything he wants to do to anyone he wants to.
Trump is probably the greatest threat to our democracy at this point in time. And the very fear that I have is that if he is reelected, we will be moving towards a dictatorship, as he is able to pack the courts with judges who are sympathetic to Donald Trump, not sympathetic to the rule of law, but sympathetic to the person that appointed them. I mean, you're even seeing that now within the Supreme Court and the different way the votes are going at this point in time. It would probably be ideal to install some sort of term limits as well on the Supreme Court, in light of the fact that the political appointees appear to have lied so greatly during their senatorial confirmation proceedings and really made no issue at hiding that on their subsequent rulings. And I'm a U.S. Supreme Court admitted attorney. I've been there. So I feel very strongly about the way the entire judicial system is being eroded, and you're having people called corrupt judges, corrupt prosecutors. Everybody is corrupt except the name caller himself.
Donald Trump is now facing some very serious allegations for his deliberate retention and concealment of several hundred classified documents. These documents have been stored in a toilet at Mar-a-Lago and are accessible to staff and visitors. The legal definition of a top secret classification is information that can cause serious or exceptionally grave damage to our nation's security. I think you can well imagine why there is such a great concern about how those documents were concealed and stored. Some people may say, well, President Biden also had some documents which he apparently had forgotten about and kept stored at his home. There really is no equivalence between the two. President Biden, as soon as he found those documents, or the documents were found, he immediately turned them over, and in 6 weeks the whole issue was resolved. There was only like 20 documents involved. President Trump, on the other hand, has several hundred classified documents, and it took him over 2 years to finally turn over a goodly portion of them. In the meantime, he had retained them, and he had made it very difficult for the government to be able to get those documents back. If I had handled those documents the way Trump did, I would probably be making a collect call from now, because I would be calling from jail. Trump had justified his behavior by saying, I'm allowed to do whatever I want. He even petitioned the Supreme Court asking for a rule that he should be immune from prosecution from this and other criminal acts. Do you see what I'm getting at? I strongly believe in the rule of law, and Trump believes that he is above the law.
The idea that a president is immune from prosecution for things that are done outside of the office of the presidency, the idea that Trump or anyone is fully immune from prosecution for that is silly in my mind. He mishandled classified documents. There's no excuse for that.
I'm aware that he said he would terminate the Constitution. I'm aware that he thinks that he is above the law and immune from any kind of prosecution being as president. And to have a President Trump that would possibly assassinate his opponents is not what this country is about. And he said that he had the power to do that, to call out the SEAL team to assassinate a Republican or a Democrat opponent. And that scares me, though, to work. Now he wants to put his family in there as leaders of the party. So he's trying to create an autocratic dynasty, sort of, or an autocratic kingship as a dictator. And he said he would be a dictator for one day. That scares me. He said he would assassinate his political rivals if that was what he thought he could do. He said he's immune from prosecution. He's not a leader. He's not what this country needs. They need a true leader. Whatever party that is, they need a true leader. And Donald Trump is not a true leader.
I'm very concerned at what he says personally about what he's going to do to this country. And I do believe he truly feels he wants immunity so that he can do anything he wants. And I think as every day we think, well, that's not going to affect us. That's just going to affect those political leaders. But it's bigger than that. I really think his goal, because of the things he says and has done, that is going to be more of a Russian-looking type of parliament, where it's going to be where the majority of the party is under one person. And so these elections that they have it's not a democracy. That's very clear.
His whole claim that immunity is necessary so presidents don't get prosecuted. There were 44 before him. Not one of them's been prosecuted. It's purely just about Trump. And he's willing to go to any length to gratify his own ego. That's not what America needs.
Why can't I support Trump again? Well, primarily because he's proven himself to be egotistical, a narcissist. He believes that he should be a dictator instead of the president. He believes he's above the law. He believes that he has presidential immunity even after being president. He believes that Russia is on par with us, that we should be in cahoots with him. He thinks that he can control Russia when I think Russia wants to control us. I'm afraid that he doesn't support the same values and moralities as I do as a human and an American citizen. He wants to abolish the Constitution and rewrite it. I believe that he's trying to be a dictator and bring China and Russia into our allies and destroy our economy, destroy our Constitution. He wants to rewrite our Constitution with him as a dictator. I believe that Trump is also not right because, again, morally and ethically, he doesn't stand for the things that I stand for.
The fact that Donald Trump is saying something like he's willing to terminate the Constitution is terrifying, because they're actually everyone keeps standing behind the Constitution right now and saying, oh, the Constitution says he can't be eliminated from the ballot. The Constitution says he has immunity. Well, if he eliminates the Constitution, it doesn't matter what it says. And so he could be president forever if he wants to. He could appoint the next president if he realizes maybe his health is failing and he wants Don Jr. to take over, or whatever the case may be. The Constitution, while not perfect, was written by our forefathers, people who understood the tyranny of the British government, which was the reason why this country was founded in the first place. And things were written in there to prevent us from making the mistakes of the British Empire and making the mistakes of people of our forefathers in the past and things like that. And it would eliminate, by eliminating the Constitution, he would eliminate all of those things. And being a dictator on day one, that's, again, people want freedom, right? People keep saying, a lot of his supporters say, well, we should be free. We should be free to do whatever we want. But they're not really asking to be free to do whatever we want. They're asking to be free to do whatever they want. So if I want to be a certain way, if a family member of mine wants to be, is gay, bi, or whatever the case may be, those people are going to be persecuted, and those people are going to be treated as less than anyone else. We're all people. Doesn't matter what color we are, doesn't matter what race we are. We're all people. We're all citizens of this country. And by terminating the Constitution, you terminate the rights that citizens have of this country, and you only really cater to the people who agree with the person who has terminated those rights.
The reality is, electing Donald Trump into office again will not make America great, but will further degrade the office of the presidency. For example, his communication style. The fact that he can say anything or do anything and feel like he has no ramifications and ignores the rule of law is just an indication to me that it doesn't matter what other individuals think. Donald Trump thinks he's making America great again. In reality, he's going to cause a lot more problems and chaos and upheaval in the system, and he's going to ignore the rule of law and not really care about the consequences.
His attitude toward the entire election process and toward the government in general is just, I'm Donald Trump, I can do whatever I want. Your responsibility is to listen to me and obey and stand aside if I decide I want to do something. And that is a very dangerous attitude for any politician or anyone really in politics or without, but especially someone with political power. That as a country, we can't have someone who believes they are above the rule of law, because the rule of law is the only thing that is keeping our nation kind of secure and on track.
Critical to being a Republican is belief in the rule of law. It's essential, and that no man is above the law. Yet Donald Trump stands there, a felon, and says that he's immune to prosecution. That's not right. We have to know that as Republicans. No one is above the law. No one. It doesn't matter who you are. You also don't politicize the Department of Justice when you're president. You believe in the peaceful transfer of power, which did not happen on January 6th. You do not knowingly lie about the election being stolen and then continue to lie about it every single day since. This isn't what Republicans do. We accept election outcomes. We embrace the rule of law. We don't demonize the Department of Justice. We don't demonize the Federal Bureau of Investigation. We don't demonize our own national security apparatus. Donald Trump is not a Republican, and he has remade our party into an image that is cruel, vindictive, racist, that believes in revenge above all else. Donald Trump is no more loyal to you than he is to anyone else. He cares about one thing and one thing only, and that is himself.
He's continued to go against the rule of law in the United States. Donald Trump has failed us. He is no longer the leader that I can support. The indictments that are against him today is only going to continue. He needs to step aside and let the United States heal.
He is a convicted felon. I have an issue with convicted felons holding any office, much less the president of the United States. Also, I believe he has become overly arrogant. He has shown that he has a complete disregard for the rule of law in our country. He treats the presidency and his views much more of a dictatorship style than he did while he was president.